Have you ever wondered why some moments in your life feel like a complete breakdown, as if everything is falling apart at the same time? What if I told you that maybe this isn't bad luck, but a calling? The dark night of the soul is the point where God tears the veil of illusion and opens a secret path, a spiritual portal that only the chosen 144,000 can pass through. And here's a shock: not everyone will get there. While many seek answers in ready-made formulas, the chosen ones are taken through a process that defies logic, patience, and even faith. They go through a spiritual ordeal so intense that most would give up in the middle. But on the other side, there is something that the world cannot offer: true light. The most curious? This journey begins when you least expect it. It may be the day you lose everything, or in that uncomfortable silence when God seems distant. Only, in fact, He is closer than ever. It is at this very moment that the awakening of the soul begins, and the spiritual clock begins to tick. If you think you're living in senseless chaos, you may be on the threshold of a spiritual rebirth. Perhaps the spiritual signs are already there, but you have not yet learned to see. And when you learn, nothing will ever be the same. So tell me, which word sums up your life now, night or light? Comment below and let's find out together where you are on this journey. There are moments in life when everything seems to come crashing down, doors close, friends move away, dreams shatter. It is at this point that many, without realizing it, enter the so-called dark night of the soul. It's not punishment, it's stoning. Like the blacksmith who heats the metal before shaping it, God warms the heart, breaking through the illusion to reveal something deeper. Is it hard? But it is also the most intimate invitation to a spiritual rebirth. This phase does not warn when it arrives, nor does it ask for permission. It simply takes over, like a storm that turns off all the lights, leaving only the sound of rain and the cold of the wind. But it is in this void that the divine call begins to echo. What once seemed like a priority loses its luster, and the question arises: who am I, really? It is here that the soul begins to free itself from false attachments. Imagine someone who has always chased success and applause, but suddenly feels that none of it fulfills him anymore. It is the spiritual trial at work, pulling out roots that do not serve. At this point, subtle signs, the spiritual signs, begin to appear: an unexpected encounter, a vivid dream, a text that touches deeply. Nothing is a coincidence. It is the secret map to the true light. The most curious thing is that, at this stage, the world may think you are lost, when, in fact, you are being found. It is like a seed buried in the dark, no one sees it, but within it a new life is forming. This is the essence of the awakening of the soul, the silent beginning of a transformation that few understand, but that the chosen 144,000 recognize in their hearts. And if the journey so far already seems intense, it is because it is only the first step. This night is not only a period of pain, but the secret corridor that leads to the next stage, silent purification, where silence itself speaks louder than 1,000 voices. In silent purification, God works like a patient sculptor. He does not shout, He does not rush, He does not explain every stroke of the chisel, He only removes, with precision, what prevents the soul from shining. It is in this silence that the person begins to realize that they are not alone, even if they feel isolated. The external world falls silent, and the internal world begins to echo strongly. This is where the awakening of the soul takes root. Loneliness, which many fear, becomes the secret laboratory of spiritual rebirth. It is in the empty room, in the sleepless dawn, that the heart is purged of the expectations of others and false comforts. Remember that friendship that disappeared? Or that job that, out of nowhere, ended? It wasn't a loss, it was pruning. Prune so that the true light finds space to flourish. This process hurts because it affects what we believe to be essential. It's like cleaning an old house: you find treasures, but you also find dust, webs, and things that need to go. The divine call in this phase is subtle, but constant. It can come in a verse that stands out, in a silence that brings peace, or in a simple moment when the heart says, "Keep going." For the chosen 144,000, purification is daily training. They understand that each day of silence is like crossing an invisible bridge over an abyss. It is walking without seeing, trusting only in spiritual signs. It is not a task for everyone, but for those who have been called, refusing is not an option. And when that bridge ends, there is something waiting. A spiritual portal that only opens to those who have endured the darkness and listened to the silence as one who hears a song. But crossing it requires more than courage, it requires total surrender. There are souls who carry an invisible but unmistakable mark. It is not a tattoo, it is not a symbol engraved on the skin, it is something engraved on the spirit. They are the 144,000 chosen, separated from the beginning for a mission that the world does not understand. They do not stand out for their appearance, but for the way they perceive life. While others see only coincidences, they see spiritual signs flashing like beacons in the night. The divine call comes in different forms to each one. For some, it is a recurring dream, for others, a sequence of events that forces them to abandon old paths. But there is a common point: everyone goes through the spiritual trial that tests the limit of faith. It's as if life said, "Do you really want to fulfill your mission? Then prove it." And the most curious thing is that these chosen ones rarely feel ready at first. They doubt, question, hesitate. But deep down, something pulsates, reminding them that they were born for more. This is where the awakening of the soul becomes inevitable. They realize that the calling is not about status or recognition, but about serving as bridges to the true light. The 144,000 are not unattainable superheroes, they are ordinary people with extraordinary responsibilities. They can be teachers, doctors, drivers, or artists. The difference is that, in their hearts, they know that every gesture, every word, and every choice has a weight in the great divine plan. They live with the awareness that every action is part of the mission of the chosen ones. And when you accept that truth, you realize that you are not going anywhere, you are walking towards something great. A spiritual portal awaits them, a point of no return, where what was dormant finally awakens. There is an instant in the journey when the soul, tired of struggling in the dark night of the soul, realizes that it has reached an invisible frontier. It is as if a veil is torn before the eyes, revealing a path that did not exist before. This is the spiritual portal, a passage that is not opened with keys, but with total surrender. Only those who cross understand. On the other side, the true light does not blind, it heals. The moment of the crossing is not always triumphant. Sometimes it comes in the silence of a sincere prayer, or in the lonely tears shed in the middle of the night. It is the spiritual trial in its last act, requiring courage to leave behind everything that does not fit in the new cycle. Anyone who has crossed it knows, the weight of the old life simply does not pass through this door. Many describe this moment as a rebirth. Spiritual rebirth does not take place on a stage with applause, but in the secret corner where God speaks directly to the heart. There, the divine call ceases to be a distant echo and becomes a clear, firm voice, impossible to ignore. For the 144,000 chosen, the portal is more than a personal passage, it is a meeting place. Each one carries within themselves a piece of the great puzzle of the mission of the chosen. As they cross, they realize that they are not alone, that others have walked through the same darkness, guided by the same spiritual signs. But crossing over doesn't mean the journey is over. On the contrary, crossing is just the beginning of a new stage, where the soul will know a light that is not of this world. And that light is going to reset everything you thought you knew. When the soul passes through the spiritual portal, the first sensation is one of estrangement. It is not the ordinary glare we see at dawn, nor the artificial glow of human lamps. It is a true light that penetrates even the most hidden places of the being, revealing what was hidden even from oneself. It doesn't hurt, but it also doesn't leave anything untouched. It is as if God Himself said, "Now you see how I see." This light cannot be explained by doctrines, rituals, or beautiful speeches. It does not come from human leaders, but from the direct presence of the Creator. It is the point where the awakening of the soul reaches a level that words cannot capture. Many try to describe it and end up saying, it is impossible to explain, just by living. And it's not an exaggeration, it's pure truth. The divine call at this stage is no longer an invitation, but a loving command. It shapes thoughts, directs steps, inspires decisions. It is at this point that spiritual probation turns into spiritual authority. The person not only carries the light, but becomes part of it, radiating it to those who cross his path, without even having to speak. The 144,000 chosen know that this light is not to keep in a vault, but to spread on a world plunged into darkness. Every gesture, every word, every action becomes a reflection of the mission of the chosen ones. And wherever they go, they leave spiritual signs that awaken other sleeping souls, like small sparks lighting torches. But, like any great revelation, this light also attracts challenges. Being a carrier of it means facing battles that few imagine. And that's exactly where the most intense forges begin, the trials that transform spiritual warriors into unwavering leaders. Every spiritual battle that comes to life is not an accident, but a training. God does not play dice with the fate of His own, He polishes it. Just as gold must pass through fire to become pure, the souls of the chosen 144,000 go through trials that seem impossible. It is in this furnace that spiritual rebirth gains strength and that the awakening of the soul ceases to be a theory and becomes a living experience. Spiritual trial can come as loss, injustice, sickness, or even silence from God. But every blow, every delay, every closed door is a hammer shaping warriors who know how to fight not with human weapons, but with faith and discernment. It is at the moment when the ground seems to disappear that the person discovers the power of standing. The spiritual signs during this process are like small divine notes left on the way, a word that arrives at the right time, a dream that brings direction, an encounter that renews strength. For those with spiritual eyes, these signs are not details, they are supplies for the journey. And the truth is that there is no victory without struggle. Kingdom warriors know that the light they carry, this true light that is not of this world, needs to be protected and cultivated. Therefore, each trial is seen as a spiritual academy, where invisible muscles are strengthened to sustain the mission of the chosen ones. And when the last blow of the forge is made, something changes forever. The warrior is no longer the same, and this brings us to the next step, the new identity in the kingdom, where spiritual authority becomes visible even to those who do not understand mysteries. When the soul crosses the forge and survives the storms, something profound happens, it receives a new garment. It is not visible to ordinary eyes, but in the spiritual world it shines like refined gold. It is the mark of those who lived the dark night of the soul, crossed the spiritual portal and now carry the true light as a crown. This is not an honor bestowed by men, but by the King Himself. The new identity changes the way we see and act. What once irritated is now a cause for compassion. What once seemed like loss is now understood as liberation. The awakening of the soul gives way to a firm posture, but full of love. The divine calling becomes not just mission, but part of who the person is, impossible to separate. For the chosen 144,000, this identity comes with spiritual authority. It is not about titles or positions, but about the weight that words carry, the presence that changes environments, the spiritual signs that manifest where they are. It is a silent power, but impossible to ignore. This transformation also redefines relationships and priorities. Some turn away, unable to comprehend the new brightness, others approach, drawn by the flame of spiritual rebirth. In both cases, it is God lining up the pieces for the mission of the chosen ones. And it is precisely at this stage that the warrior understands that his life is not just about him. There is a last call, a final task that unites all the chosen ones in the same direction, the final mission of the 144,000. On the great board of spiritual history, the 144,000 chosen are not in random positions. Each one was strategically placed by God Himself, as living pieces of a perfect plan. What began in the dark night of the soul now reveals itself. The whole process of pain, silence, spiritual ordeal, and spiritual rebirth was only the training for this decisive moment. The final mission is not to be done in comfort, but on the battlefield. It requires each chosen one to carry true light amidst the growing darkness of the world, illuminating paths that no one else can see. The divine call here is no longer a gentle invitation, but a trumpet blast that echoes within the soul. They are sent as living signs, literally walking spiritual signs, that awaken those who are still asleep. They preach not only with words, but with life, posture, and choices. Every action is calculated by heaven to generate eternal impact. There is no room for distraction, as time is short and the harvest is great. The mission of the chosen ones is twofold: to protect the truth and to prepare others to pass through the spiritual portal before it is too late. It is like guiding an army through hostile territory, with the map engraved not on paper, but in one's own heart. Their courage comes not from themselves, but from the certainty that they have been called and sealed to do so. And when everyone is ready, when every piece is in place, the world will see something it has never seen before. It will be the climax of a story that began in silence, and that, one day, will explode in light before everyone. Now that you know this journey, from the dark night of the soul to the spiritual portal to the call of the chosen 144,000, the question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you continue to live on automatic, waiting for something to change on its own, or will you respond to the divine call and take the next step? The spiritual trials you face today may be just the training for a spiritual rebirth that will change everything. But this only happens if you decide to go through the darkness in search of the true light. The choice is yours. And time does not stop. Think about it. What if you had been receiving spiritual signs for weeks, months, or years? And you just didn't notice? How many opportunities to fulfill the mission of the chosen ones have you passed up because you didn't believe you could be part of it? If this message has struck a chord with you, it might be time to stop ignoring what's in front of you. Start today to act like someone who has been called to something greater. The world needs your light, and not tomorrow, but now. So tell me, are you ready to cross? Write "I cross" in the comments and subscribe to the channel, activating notifications, because here we will continue walking together on this journey until the end.